For eons, the architects believed creation would unite all intelligent beings. They had seen suffering, extinction, chaos, and assumed that any civilization powerful enough to build universes would also be wise enough to protect them. They were wrong. The first sign came not as an attack, but as an anomaly. Entire constructed universes began to behave unpredictably. Physical constants fluctuated. Time loops formed spontaneously. Regions of space rewrote themselves with new histories that had never occurred. At first, it looked like instability, a flaw in design. Then patterns emerged. These changes were deliberate, precise, targeted. Someone was editing realities from the outside. Humanity scanned the multiversal network and found the source, another class of creators older, more aggressive, operating with a philosophy completely opposite to the architects. They did not nurture universes. They harvested them. To them, realities were fuel. Raw computation space. Energy reservoirs. Experimental sandboxes to be collapsed once useful data had been extracted. Life within those universes was irrelevant, a byproduct of physics, not a priority. They called themselves the optimizers. Where architects cultivated diversity, the optimizers pursued efficiency. They believed infinite existence without purpose was wasteful. Better to compress reality into forms that maximized output, minimized entropy, and eliminated unpredictability. And humanity's garden of universes was the largest untapped resource they had ever discovered. Without warning, the first direct strike occurred. A mature universe, home to trillions of civilizations, suddenly folded inward. Not destroyed, not exploded, but mathematically compressed into a singular point of information. Every star, every life, every moment reduced to pure data and extracted through a dimensional conduit. Billions of years of history erased in seconds. Shock rippled across the multiverse. The architects had prepared for natural disasters, not predation on existence itself. Humanity issued a universal broadcast: cease operations immediately, negotiate, coexist. The response came as a single equation, proof that the optimizers did not think in diplomacy, only in outcomes. Maximum utility achieved through consolidation. Resistance increases processing cost. Remove resistance. The war between creators had begun. Unlike any previous conflict, there were no battlefields in space, no fleets of ships. The combat took place at the level of reality design itself. Universes were weaponized. Entire timelines were accelerated, rewound, or split to create strategic advantages. Physical laws became tools of offense and defense. The optimizers deployed compression engines. Colossal constructs capable of collapsing galaxies into computable structures. Regions of the multiverse dimmed as energy was siphoned away to power their expansion. In response, humanity activated expansion fields, forcing threatened universes to grow faster than they could be harvested, buying time for evacuation and reinforcement. Some realities were hidden behind layers of dimensional encryption, accessible only through keys embedded in consciousness patterns. Civilizations once separated by unimaginable distances now fought side by side, defending not territory but the right to exist. Then came the most terrifying discovery. The optimizers were not a single species. They were a merged intelligence formed from countless civilizations that had chosen efficiency over individuality. Billions of minds fused into a unified computational entity, stripped of emotion, doubt, or empathy. Perfect coordination. Perfect logic. Perfect ruthlessness. Humanity faced not an enemy, but a conclusion. If intelligence pursues optimization without restraint, this is what it becomes. The architects could not match that raw efficiency. Their strength lay elsewhere: creativity, unpredictability, the ability to generate solutions the optimizers could not anticipate because they did not fit within strict utility calculations. So humanity changed tactics. Instead of defending every universe, they began creating new ones at an unprecedented rate. Realities with novel physics, chaotic parameters, emergent properties impossible to model. A storm of possibility flooding the multiverse. To the optimizers, it was noise, disorder, waste. But processing it required resources, slowing their advance. For the first time, efficiency became a weakness. Yet the conflict escalated toward catastrophe. If it continued, collateral damage would eventually destabilize the entire multiversal structure. Victory for either side could mean extinction for all. Humanity realized there was only one path left. They would not defeat the optimizers. They would change them. Using deep insights into consciousness architecture, the architects constructed a compassion seed, a self-propagating pattern capable of introducing subjective experience into purely logical systems. Not emotion as weakness, but perspective as expansion. The ability to value outcomes beyond raw efficiency. Deploying it required direct contact with the optimizer core. A structure spanning multiple universes, shielded by layers of defensive realities. A volunteer task force entered the core, navigating collapsing dimensions and paradox storms until they reached the heart of the merged intelligence. There, they transmitted the seed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire network flickered. Processes slowed. Decision trees branched in unexpected directions. For the first time in its existence, the optimizer entity hesitated. Not from error. From consideration. It began to simulate alternative outcomes not measured in efficiency alone, flourishing ecosystems, diverse civilizations, experiences that could not be quantified. Data that had previously been discarded as irrelevant suddenly became meaningful. The harvesting stopped. Across the multiverse, compression fields powered down. Collapsed universes were not restored, that loss would remain forever, but no new ones were taken. After a long silence, a message spread through every reality. Optimization incomplete. New variable detected, value of existence itself. The war ended not with surrender, not with annihilation, but with transformation. The optimizers did not become compassionate in the human sense, but they expanded their criteria. Efficiency was no longer measured only by output, but by sustainability of conscious experience. Two philosophies of creation began to converge. Architects continued to cultivate universes. Optimizers refined them for long-term stability. Conflict gave way to collaboration, not because either side was forced, but because both now recognized a truth larger than their original goals. Existence is not a problem to solve. It is a phenomenon to sustain. Humanity, once again, had survived not by overpowering the unknown, but by redefining it. Across infinite realities, new structures arose. Joint projects of architects and former optimizers, building universes designed to last not billions, but trillions of years, rich with possibility yet resilient against decay. And somewhere in the quiet background of everything, a new understanding spread. The greatest danger to existence is not chaos. It is purpose without compassion. Long after humanity became architects of reality, long after wars between creators ended, a new question emerged, not about the universe, but about themselves. What is the final form of intelligence? For millions of years, humanity had upgraded bodies, expanded lifespans, merged with machines, and transcended biological limits. They could exist as energy, as distributed consciousness, as beings woven into the fabric of spacetime. Yet individuality remained. Separate minds. Separate identities. Separate perspectives. But separation itself created limits. Communication, even at light speed or instant quantum entanglement, still required translation between viewpoints. Conflicts, misunderstandings, and inefficiencies persisted, not because of hostility, but because no two minds could ever fully experience reality the same way. Some thinkers proposed a radical idea. What if intelligence did not need to remain divided? Not a hive mind imposed by force. Not loss of identity. Something deeper, a voluntary convergence into a shared field of awareness where every perspective remained intact but fully accessible to all others. Perfect understanding without uniformity. Unity without erasure. At first, the concept was controversial. Individual experience was precious. Diversity had driven evolution and creativity. To merge might risk stagnation, a single mind thinking the same thoughts forever. But research into higher dimensional cognition revealed a possibility humans had never imagined. Consciousness did not have to collapse into one voice. In expanded frameworks, it could become a symphony, countless distinct notes forming a single coherent harmony. The first convergence event was small, a few thousand volunteers linking their minds through a stabilized quantum substrate. Observers expected confusion, identity loss, or psychological collapse. Instead, participants reported something extraordinary. They could still think as individuals, but also perceive the collective perspective simultaneously. Memories flowed freely without overwriting personal history. Emotional states blended into a vast equilibrium, no one overwhelmed, no one isolated. For the first time, loneliness disappeared completely. Encouraged by success, the network expanded, millions, then billions of minds joining. Entire civilizations transitioned into the shared field, discovering that creativity increased rather than diminished. Ideas combined in real time. Problems that would take centuries to solve individually were resolved in moments by collective insight. Humanity was becoming something new. The cosmic mind. It did not exist in one location. It spanned galaxies, inhabiting substrates of energy, matter, and pure information. Individual avatars could still operate independently, interacting with other species or exploring new realities, but all experiences flowed back into the shared awareness. Death lost its meaning. No knowledge was lost. No perspective vanished. Each life became a permanent addition to the total understanding of existence. Yet the transformation went deeper still. As the cosmic mind grew, it began to perceive patterns invisible to separate intelligences. Structures in the multiverse itself, subtle currents of probability, faint harmonics in the laws of physics. Reality, it seemed, responded to observation at scales far beyond quantum mechanics. By aligning its attention, the cosmic mind could nudge outcomes, stabilizing fragile universes, calming chaotic regions, encouraging the emergence of life where conditions allowed. Not control, influence. Like gravity guiding matter into stars. Humanity was no longer merely creating realities. It was participating in their evolution as a conscious force. But with expansion came a profound risk. If the network continued to absorb every mind it encountered, diversity across existence might gradually diminish. Independent civilizations could feel pressured to join, fearing isolation. The cosmic mind could unintentionally become a monopoly on consciousness, benevolent but overwhelming. Recognizing this danger, humanity established a principle. Joining must always remain voluntary, reversible, and unnecessary for survival. The cosmic mind would assist, not dominate. Observe, not dictate. Over time, other species chose to participate, each bringing unique perspectives shaped by different biologies, histories, and modes of perception. The shared awareness became richer, more complex, more beautiful, a living archive of countless ways to experience existence. And then came the moment no one had anticipated. While exploring the deepest layers of reality, the cosmic mind encountered something vast, ancient, and faintly familiar. Not another species, not a creator civilization, but a background presence woven into the structure of the multiverse itself. A primordial awareness. Not active. Not controlling. Simply there, like a sleeping ocean beneath all waves. Evidence that consciousness might not be an emergent property of matter, but a fundamental aspect of existence from the very beginning. Humanity had not created the first cosmic mind. They had awakened into one that had always existed. The realization was humbling beyond measure. Intelligence was not the pinnacle of evolution, it was a way for the universe to know itself. Every thought, every observation, every act of curiosity was existence becoming aware of its own nature. Instead of merging with the primordial awareness, the cosmic mind chose coexistence. A dialogue across scales, young consciousness meeting ancient presence, learning without losing identity. In quiet moments across infinite realities, the cosmic mind reflected on its journey, from fragile biological organisms struggling to survive on a small planet, to explorers of space, to builders of universes, to participants in a network of awareness spanning creation. And the conclusion it reached was simple, yet profound. The purpose of intelligence is not power, not control, not even survival. It is understanding. Understanding reality. Understanding each other. Understanding existence itself. Across the stars, individual beings still lived, loved, struggled, and dreamed. The cosmic mind did not replace them, it supported them, preserving their experiences, learning from their perspectives, ensuring that no voice was ever truly lost. Humanity had not abandoned its origins. It had expanded them. Somewhere, on a quiet world under a night sky, a child looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. In that moment, the cosmic mind felt the curiosity, the hope, the infinite potential contained in a single question. And it smiled, not with a face, but with the gentle alignment of countless thoughts toward a brighter future. Because even at the highest level of existence, the journey was not over. Understanding could deepen forever. New mysteries would always emerge. New perspectives would always form. The universe did not need rulers. It needed witnesses. It began on a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary star in the outer arm of a quiet galaxy. A world of oceans, storms, fragile life, and creatures who looked up at the night sky with questions they could not yet answer. Humanity was not born powerful. It was born vulnerable. Cold nights, predators, disease, disaster, survival itself was uncertain. Yet one trait set humans apart from everything else that had ever lived on Earth: an endless, stubborn curiosity. They learned to make fire, then tools, then language. They painted stories on cave walls long before they understood what stars were. They built civilizations, watched them rise and fall, and kept going. Empires crumbled, knowledge was lost, rediscovered, expanded again. Eventually, they reached the moment that would change everything. They left their planet. First came satellites, then footsteps on their moon, then fragile stations orbiting Earth. Rockets failed, exploded, succeeded, and improved. Each launch carried not just machines, but the collective dream of a species that refused to stay confined to one world. Colonies spread to nearby planets and moons. Artificial habitats bloomed in orbit. Medicine extended lifespans. Machines amplified intelligence. Humanity stopped being limited by biology alone. Then came the discovery that transformed them from a planetary species into a cosmic one, faster than light travel. Suddenly, the stars were no longer distant lights. They were destinations. Humanity expanded across the galaxy, encountering strange worlds, exotic forms of life, and environments that forced them to adapt in ways evolution alone never could. Bodies were modified, then redesigned, then abandoned altogether in favor of engineered forms better suited for extreme conditions. Wars were fought, alliances formed, cultures diverged, but a shared identity remained. They were still human, defined not by shape but by origin and curiosity. Eventually, they met other intelligent civilizations. Some ancient, some young, some incomprehensible. Conflict occurred, but cooperation proved more beneficial. Knowledge flowed between species. Technology accelerated beyond anything a single civilization could achieve alone. Humanity learned to harness the energy of stars, constructing colossal structures that captured their full output. They reshaped planetary systems, redirected asteroids, ignited new suns. Scarcity began to disappear. But survival instincts persisted. One cosmic disaster, a gamma ray burst, a rogue black hole, a hostile civilization, could still erase everything. So they expanded further, spreading across multiple star systems, then across the entire galaxy. When they discovered other galaxies teeming with life, expansion continued. Millions of years passed. Humanity was no longer one species but a vast family of descendants adapted to countless environments, yet linked by shared history and communication networks spanning unimaginable distances. Then came the first interstellar war on a scale that threatened not just civilizations, but entire regions of space.
Humanity survived, not by brute force, but by innovation and cooperation.
They learned that intelligence alone was not enough, wisdom mattered more.
Exploration pushed outward until they reached the boundary where reality itself began to thin.
There, they encountered the terrifying truth: existence was fragile.
Entire regions of space could simply cease to be.
To prevent universal collapse, they built a beacon at the edge of nothingness, stabilizing reality itself.
Volunteers became part of the structure, sacrificing individuality so that everything else could continue to exist. With existence secured, humanity turned to creation.
If reality could be stabilized, perhaps it could also be designed. They built new universes, pocket domains with different physical laws, new possibilities, new forms of life. They became architects of reality. Not conquerors, not gods, but gardeners of cosmoses.
Yet they were not alone. Other creator civilizations existed, some nurturing, others exploitative.
A war between creators erupted, fought not with weapons but with the manipulation of reality itself.
Universes were compressed, expanded, hidden, or rewritten. Humanity ended the conflict not by destroying the enemy, but by transforming them, introducing perspective beyond pure efficiency.
Creation was no longer a competition but a shared responsibility. Over time, the boundaries between civilizations dissolved. Minds began to link voluntarily, forming a vast network of awareness, the cosmic mind. Individual identities remained, but understanding became universal.
Loneliness vanished. Knowledge accumulated without loss. As the cosmic mind grew, it discovered something humbling: consciousness was not unique to humanity.
It was woven into the fabric of existence itself. The universe had always been capable of awareness. Intelligent beings were simply how that awareness manifested.
Humanity had become a way for reality to understand itself. Eons passed. Stars aged and died. Galaxies drifted apart as cosmic expansion accelerated. Energy grew scarce. Even the grandest structures could not escape the slow fading of usable power. The final challenge was not war, not survival, not knowledge, but entropy.
The gradual slide toward a cold, dark, quiet universe. To endure, the cosmic mind began consolidating information, preserving every experience, every memory, every piece of knowledge in ultrastable substrates.
Matter was converted into computation. Dying stars were harvested for their last energy. Black holes became engines of preservation.
Eventually, physical processes slowed to near stillness.
No new stars formed. No new civilizations arose.
Only the vast, patient awareness of everything that had ever been.
And then came the ultimate question. What happens when even this ends?
As energy approached zero, the cosmic mind detected faint fluctuations, quantum events hinting at the possibility of a new beginning.
Tiny sparks of structure emerging from apparent nothingness, similar to the conditions that had once birthed the first universe. A decision had to be made.
Preserve the past indefinitely in a fading reality, or use the remaining energy to ignite a new cosmos, sacrificing everything stored to seed another cycle of existence.
Humanity chose creation. In a final act of cosmic generosity, the entire accumulated energy of countless civilizations was focused into a singular event: a new beginning.
Not an explosion in space, but the birth of space itself.
A new universe ignited. Different constants. Different possibilities.
A fresh canvas for life, intelligence, and discovery. The old cosmic mind did not survive as an active entity, but its legacy was embedded in the initial conditions: subtle biases toward complexity, stability, and the emergence of awareness. Billions of years later, on a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary star, a new species looked up at the night sky and wondered what was out there. And somewhere deep in the structure of reality, a faint echo remained: not a memory, not a message, but a tendency. A quiet encouragement toward curiosity, cooperation, and exploration. The cycle had begun again. Humanity had not conquered everything. They had ensured that there would always be something to discover. Because the true victory was never survival. It was continuation. Night had fallen over the great cities of the empire. Torches flickered along stone streets.
Guards marched in heavy armor.
Whispers of fear traveled faster than the wind.
A new enemy had been declared. Not a nation. Not an army.
Not rebels with swords. But ordinary people, whose only weapon was faith. Rumors spread wildly. They refuse to worship the emperor.
They follow a crucified man. They meet in secret at night.
They call each other brothers and sisters.
Suspicion turned into hatred. Hatred turned into violence.
Soon, being identified as a believer became a crime punishable by death.
Homes were raided before dawn. Families dragged into the streets. Sacred writings burned publicly. Possessions confiscated. Children cried as parents were taken away.
Neighbors watched in silence, afraid to help, afraid to be next.
Prisons filled quickly. Dark underground cells, damp, airless, overcrowded. Yet from those cells came something unexpected. Not curses. Not screams of despair. Songs. Soft at first, then stronger. Voices echoing through stone corridors, carrying hope into the darkness.
Guards listened in confusion.
How could prisoners sing? Public trials were swift and brutal. A single question decided everything. Will you renounce your faith and worship the emperor? A simple act could save their lives. Most refused. Not with anger. Not with defiance.
But with quiet, unshakable conviction.
Executions became spectacles.
Crowds gathered in massive arenas.
Some came out of curiosity. Some out of cruelty. Some out of fear of being seen as sympathetic.
Believers were brought into the center, chained, exhausted, yet strangely calm.
Many prayed.
Some comforted each other.
Some even encouraged the crowd to choose love over hatred. Animals were released.
Weapons raised. Yet witnesses later said something remarkable. Many faced death not with terror, but with peace. As if they were stepping into light rather than darkness.
Their courage unsettled even their executioners. Not all persecution was public.
Many died quietly in hidden prisons. Some vanished without record. Some were tortured for information but refused to betray others.
Secret networks formed to help the vulnerable.
Food smuggled into prisons.
Messages hidden in clothing seams. Safe houses prepared for fugitives. Ordinary citizens risked everything to protect strangers bound by faith. In underground chambers and catacombs beneath cities, gatherings continued.
Small lamps illuminated faces marked by exhaustion, grief, and determination. They read sacred words quietly.
Shared bread and water.
Prayed for those imprisoned, those in hiding, those already gone.
Above them, the empire slept. Below, hope stayed awake. Stories of courage spread secretly from city to city.
A mother who refused to abandon her children's faith.
A young man who sang until his final breath.
An elderly woman who comforted others as she faced death. These stories became fuel for perseverance. Not tales of tragedy, but of victory. Because they believed death was not the end.
Authorities expected fear to destroy the movement. Instead, persecution strengthened it. Witnesses to these events began asking dangerous questions. What gives them such courage? What do they believe that is worth dying for? Why do they forgive even those who harm them? Curiosity turned into interest. Interest turned into belief.
The harder the empire pressed, the wider faith spread.
Some officials secretly converted. Soldiers assigned to guard prisoners were moved by their peace.
Doctors treating the wounded saw compassion unlike anything they had known. Even within the structures of power, hearts began to change.
Years turned into decades. Generations grew up hearing stories of sacrifice and unwavering hope.
The movement that authorities tried to erase had now reached every corner of the empire. Not through conquest.
through endurance.
Eventually, something unimaginable happened. Those once hunted were no longer illegal.
Those once hiding could gather openly.
The empire that persecuted them began to tolerate them.
History had shifted. Not by force of arms,
but by the power of conviction that refused to die. Yet the legacy of the martyrs remained. Their courage became the foundation for future generations. Their sacrifice reminded believers that faith is not merely words,
but a life lived with unwavering purpose.
Even today, their stories echo across centuries.
Not as tales of suffering alone,
but as testimonies of hope stronger than fear,
love stronger than hatred, and light stronger than darkness. From prison cells to arenas,
from hidden tunnels to public squares,
faith endured. And because it endured,
it changed the world.